What if the most radical thing that we could do in a collapsing world is pause? Over the next 12 minutes, I want us to slow down together, to think about what it means to embody change, to move from individual action to collective transformation, and to imagine justice that begins from the inside out. My name is Taylen Reddy, and I'm the founder of Zero Waste Durban, a youth-led organization that mobilizes young people to confront plastic pollution, waste colonialism, and urban inequality. To us, the fight for clean cities and healthy ecosystems has never been separate from the fight for justice. Because when you live in a system where some communities are clean and others are not, and sacrificed, the problem isn't just waste. The problem is who is considered disposable. Even in the climate and environmental space, we often talk about a post-colonial world. But let's be honest, colonialism never truly left. Just changed its packaging, its language, and its logos. We speak of a post-colonial era as though we've moved on, but the global south is still the dumping ground for the global north. Every month, Durban receives massive shipments of e-waste illegally that somebody else decided they didn't want anymore. Countless coastal communities and port cities across Africa are plagued by shipments of plastic waste and unusable textiles that end up in the environment or in landfill. That is called waste colonialism. We live in the system that decides who breathes clean air, who drinks clean water, and whose labor keeps the world sustainable. Even our heroes are curated. Think about F.W. de Klerk, the last apartheid head of state, representative of the oppressor, forced through collective action to change, awarded with a Nobel Prize next to Nelson Mandela, who was the global icon of the resistance. That is how deeply systems disguise themselves. They reward the illusion of reform while resisting real transformation. Steve Biko, often regarded as the father of black consciousness in South Africa, once stated, "The most powerful weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." And that colonial mindset moves even into the language that we use. We often talk about empowering people as though they are powerless. But people already hold power. They have always held power. What they need is space, recognition, and justice. To decolonize our movements, we must think about not just what we fight for, but why and how. We need to ask questions like whose knowledge do we value and whose voices are centered. It also means decentering ourselves and recognizing that decolonial knowledge is not something to be claimed, it is to be lived and shared collectively. In environmental spaces, we often celebrate data more than relationship. We speak of resources instead of relatives. We measure ecosystems instead of listening to them. But in many African traditions and those across the global south, the river is not a resource. It is an ancestor. The land is not a landfill. It is living memory. To restore balance, we must restore belonging. And that starts with language, with slowing down, and with remembering that we live as nature, not apart from it. When Zero Waste Durban started, funnily enough, originally as a meme page, and then a university initiative, we held cleanups, we sorted recyclables. It looked beautiful all over social media. You'd see rows of smiling youth with bags full, looking like trophies. But after a while, we realized something incredibly painful. We were cleaning up symptoms, not dismantling systems. We were picking up plastic that corporations were still producing and profiting from, built off of a system of exploitation, oppression, and marginalization of the planet and those most vulnerable to the consequences of this broken system. The problem was never litter. The problem is an economy designed to consume, to waste, and to hide its mess in somebody else's backyard. Recycling was never meant to fix that. In fact, recycling often protects that system. It keeps the illusion of sustainability alive. So, we began to shift our work. We moved from cleanups to community-led systems change. We started working on separation of waste at source. We started co-creating composting systems with local communities and amplifying the voices of young people in grassroots and community spaces on global policy platforms. We also started to talk about waste pickers, who have been the true circular economy long before the term became fashionable. They are not informal, they are invisible by design. They are environmentalists without the titles, holding up the system while being excluded from it. If we truly want justice, we must place waste pickers at the center, not the margins. Because justice is not just clean cities and communities, it means dignity restored. Through fighting for systems change, I found that many of us were becoming exhausted, angry, burnt out. We were trying to fight a system of speed and extraction while living exactly like it. We get caught up in these vicious cycles, both personally and collectively, of urgency, of burnout, of overwork. We start operating on autopilot, feeding into the same systems that we are trying to transform, both outside and within. That is when I discovered inner work, the pause, as part of activism itself. Through my work with Climate Youth Resilience, we explore what it means to decolonize mindfulness and to reclaim inner work as something that belongs to all of us. Inner work and mindfulness are inherently indigenous and ancestral to us in the global south. Remembering them means reconnecting with our roots and honoring the wisdom that sustained our ancestors long before self-care became a hashtag. Inner work is how we unlearn the colonizer inside us, the one that demands constant productivity and growth at all costs. We are taught to think critically, but not to feel deeply, to dissect problems, but not to embody awareness. We don't build resilience by constant action and gratification. We build it through presence. I know I may lose some of you here, but I believe we can learn a lot from anime. If you've ever watched One Punch Man, you'll know it's about a guy called Saitama that lives in a world full of superheroes and villains and chaos. At the start, he has no powers. He becomes invincible by doing one simple thing: 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and running 10 kilometers every day. No magic or shortcuts. The slow, consistent practice transforms him. I believe that to be a perfect analogy for inner work. It's not glamorous, and it's not a quick fix. It's the daily practice of awareness, breathing, reflecting, choosing empathy over cynicism, and truth over convenience. Again, we don't build resilience through constant action and gratification. We build it through presence. And young people across Africa are redefining what environmental action looks like through that lens. We are not picking up plastic, we are picking up buried narratives. We are questioning power, We are reconnecting with community and redefining what justice can look like. Our creativity is not a side note. It is the strategy. Our rest is not laziness. It is resistance. Because when you start to act from awareness, you begin transforming systems from the inside out. That is how movements sustain themselves, and that is how transformation becomes possible. So maybe now we can take some time to pause again. See, we do have some time. We can take a slow breath as well and appreciate the beauty all around us. Bayo Akomolafe says, times are urgent. Let us slow down. We live in an age obsessed with acceleration. We're doing more, faster. But perhaps the revolution starts by slowing down together, not as individuals trying to fix the world, but as a collective learning to feel again. Because when we slow down, we can listen, we can feel, and we can act. To clean our cities and our communities, first we have to unlearn the systems and silences that dirty our hearts. That is where the real justice begins. Thank you.